She arrived to sign a $500 million merger, but the moment the truth showed itself, she knew the contract would never survive the weekend. The sky above East Hampton hung low and gray, heavy like it was holding its breath, as if even the weather sensed something was about to break. A sleek black SUV rolled slowly up the long gravel driveway of the Bington estate, tires crunching against stone. This was not the kind of place that quietly suggested wealth. It announced it loudly. Marble columns, trimmed hedges, glass walls polished to perfection. Every inch of it said power lived here. Inside the SUV sat Danielle Givens, founder and CEO of Neurospace, 41 years old. Born in Trenton, New Jersey, raised by her aunt after her mother died from lupus when Danielle was only 10, she had not inherited comfort or connections. She had built her life through long nights, stubborn focus, and a mind that refused to quit. She built her company the same way, and now she was here to close a deal that could change the future of technology itself. She adjusted the collar of her slate gray blazer, clean, sharp, nothing loud. Danielle never dressed to impress rooms. She dressed to command them. Her driver stepped out and opened the door. "Ma'am, we're here." She nodded once, mostly to herself, then stepped onto the gravel. The estate felt massive but empty, all white stone and glass, beautiful in a way that felt cold, like it had been designed for photos, not for people. The front door opened before she reached it. Danielle. A tall man with silver hair and a smile, polished enough to reflect light, stepped forward, arms open. Charles Bington. The name carried weight that spanned generations. "A pleasure," he said. Danielle shook his hand. "Good to meet you in person, Mr. Bington. Please call me Charles," he replied quickly. "We're practically partners now." She returned a polite smile. She knew better. In his world, partnerships did not mean equals. Behind him stood his wife, Victoria Bington, wrapped in a champagne-colored suit that probably cost more than Danielle had spent on clothes in the last 5 years combined. Her smile was practiced, controlled, still deciding whether Danielle belonged here. "Welcome to our home," Victoria said. "I trust the flight was comfortable." "It was," Danielle replied. "Thank you for having me." They stepped inside. The house smelled like lemon polish and money that had never known fear. A young Latina staff member in a black uniform took Danielle's small leather bag and disappeared down a hallway without a word. As they walked, Charles pointed out artwork and architecture, speaking proudly about pieces acquired in Europe, ceilings imported from Italy, floors cut from rare stone. Danielle nodded politely, but her thoughts were elsewhere. She was here to finalize the deal. $500 million, global reach, unlimited research funding. For most founders, this was the dream ending. But Danielle did not come from dreams handed down. She came from nights eating crackers with mayonnaise and watching her aunt sew uniforms until her fingers cramped. The Bingtons had planned a full weekend. A formal dinner tonight, a brunch with shareholders tomorrow, a closing ceremony Sunday with press cameras waiting, every moment scripted, yet only minutes inside the house, Danielle felt something shift. Not fear, not nerves, awareness. She was the only black woman in the house, and likely the only one all weekend. "Let me show you to your room," Victoria said, turning toward the staircase. "We placed you on the second floor, east wing." Danielle slowed slightly. "I thought the other guests were staying in the west wing." Victoria's smile stayed perfectly still. "Yes, but we assumed you might prefer more privacy." Danielle held her gaze for just a moment longer than courtesy allowed. Then she nodded, of course. As she climbed the stairs, her phone buzzed. A message from her CFO back in San Jose. "Any red flags yet?" Danielle stared at the screen before replying. "Too early to tell." But the air already feels heavy. She did not add what she was thinking, that this had nothing to do with weather. Her guest suite was wide and quiet, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean. Gray water met gray sky. Inside, everything was beige glass and silence. Expensive, empty, not a single photo, no books, no signs of real life. She set her suitcase down and sat on the edge of the bed. She had been in places like this before: corporate apartments, executive lounges, spaces where you were invited in, but only under invisible rules. A knock interrupted her thoughts. It was Clark, the family assistant. Young, white, wearing a navy suit that fit a little too tight, like it had been chosen to make him look older than he was. "Miss Gibbons," he said, eyes not quite meeting hers. "Dinner will be at 7, formal. The family would like to introduce you to some board members and close friends before Sunday's announcement." "Thank you," Danielle said. He hesitated. "There's a stylist downstairs if you'd like suggestions." Suggestions. The word hung there. Danielle lifted one eyebrow. "I think I'll be fine, Clark." He flushed red and quickly disappeared. She did not need a stylist. Her deep navy dress was clean and structured. Her natural curls were pulled into a low, neat bun. Small gold earrings, nothing extra, everything deliberate. Still, she checked the mirror, straightened her shoulders, adjusted her watch, not for them, for herself. Downstairs, the house had changed. Champagne glasses clinked, laughter hummed low, expensive fabrics brushed against one another. Danielle stepped into the hallway just as another guest exited a room. An older man in a tuxedo, paired with designer sneakers, glanced at her, nodded once. "Evening, evening," Danielle replied. They walked down together without speaking. The dining room was enormous. Candlelight reflected off a long mahogany table set for 20. Beyond the windows, the ocean looked unreal, like a painting hung just for effect. Charles sat at the head of the table, already holding a glass of scotch. Victoria stood near the fireplace, laughing softly with an older couple dressed in pearls and navy blazers. There were no name cards. Charles spotted Danielle and rose. "Ah, our guest of honor." He turned to the room. "Everyone, this is the brilliant Miss Danielle Givens, founder, innovator, the future of tech." Polite applause followed. A few smiles, several stiff nods. Victoria stepped in beside her. "Come, dear, let's find you a seat." But instead of guiding her toward the head of the table, Victoria led her halfway down, not the worst seat, but far from the ones where real power gathered. Danielle sat and scanned the room. Men in dark suits, wives in pearls, board members, family heirs. The Bington sons laughed easily near the front. A waiter poured wine into her glass without asking. Danielle did not touch it. Across the table, a man with slicked back hair leaned forward. "So you're the genius Charles flew in." Danielle met his eyes. Genius might be generous, but yes, I'm the CEO of Neurospace. "Right, that AI thing, machine thinking or something." "Yes," she said calmly. "We build decision systems for autonomous data processing in healthcare, defense, and finance." He blinked. "Oh." The woman beside him laughed lightly. "We assumed you worked in media. You have such presence." Danielle let the comment sit, then smiled slightly. "I'm sure you meant that kindly." "Of course," the woman replied, already turning away. Danielle felt it clearly now. This was not business. This was placement, a reminder. An older woman across the table leaned forward. "Where did you go to school again?" "Stanford," Danielle said. The woman's eyebrows lifted. "Well, that's lovely. Good for you." "Thank you," Danielle replied, her voice steady. A man with a square jaw leaned closer. "I told Charles I liked this move. Adds some color to the portfolio. Very modern." Danielle looked directly at him. "Neurospace is not a diversity accessory." He laughed, missing the point entirely. "No offense, just saying it's bold." Danielle picked up her water glass. Her hand did not shake. She had been here before. Not this house, not this family, but this feeling. Compliments sharp enough to cut. Smiles that asked her to be grateful. At the far end of the room, Gregory Bington leaned against the bar with two hedge fund managers. Shirt open just enough to show confidence without effort. He noticed her, winked. Danielle looked away. Victoria tapped her glass for attention. "We are so pleased to have you all here," she said warmly. "This weekend celebrates a merging of minds and missions. Neurospace, under Miss Givens' leadership, has changed how we think about technology." Scattered applause. "It's rare to see innovation with such heart." Victoria continued. Danielle's journey reflects intelligence, determination, and courage. Courage, the word landed heavy. Victoria raised her glass to bold futures, to bold futures. The room echoed. Danielle lifted her glass without speaking. Moments later, Gregory pulled out the chair beside her and sat without asking. "Danielle," he said, pouring wine. "Dad's impressed, but there's concern." She turned slowly. "About what?" "Temperament," he said casually. "Founders like you, passion can turn volatile." Danielle looked at him carefully. "Would you ask that if I looked like you?" He laughed. "Don't be sensitive." She stood. "Excuse me," she said calmly and walked away. And that was the moment the deal truly ended. Danielle's heels echoed softly against the stone floor as she walked away from the table. No scene, no raised voice, just a quiet exit that said more than shouting ever could. A few heads turned, conversation slowed, someone coughed, but no one stopped her. She moved down the hallway toward the guest bathroom, the one tucked away from the main rooms, the kind designed to impress visitors who were never meant to stay long. Chrome fixtures, a mirror so clean it barely felt real. She locked the door and rested her hands on the counter. She did not cry, not because she did not feel hurt, but because she refused to give that room the satisfaction. She took a slow breath, then another. Danielle looked at her reflection, strong jaw, calm eyes, hair pulled back like armor. People often mistook her composure for coldness. They never understood the discipline it took to stay steady in rooms built to make her feel out of place. Her phone buzzed. "Shauna Kim, CFO, San Jose, how's it going?" Danielle stared at the screen, then typed, "I'm reconsidering everything." The typing dots appeared almost instantly. "Talk to me." Danielle leaned against the counter. "It's not just a bad dinner, it's who they are. Their name would sit next to ours everywhere. I don't think I can live with that." There was a pause, then Shauna replied, "You always said we don't beg for tables. We build our own." Danielle closed her eyes. She remembered coding late nights in a public library, the hum of old computers, the smell of dust and burnt coffee. She remembered people telling her to be realistic, to aim smaller, to be grateful, and now here she was, being told again, just in a more expensive room. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. "Danielle?" It was Victoria. Danielle unlocked the door and opened it. Victoria smiled politely. "Everything all right? I needed a moment," Danielle said. Victoria lowered her voice. "Gregory can be blunt. Please don't take it personally." Danielle folded her arms. "Blunt is honest. That was something else." Victoria hesitated. "This deal is a big opportunity." Danielle met her eyes. "Let me ask you something. If your son ran Neurospace, would anyone question his temperament? Would he be seated halfway down the table? Would guests assume he was there to check a box?" Victoria's smile tightened. "You're reading into things." "No," Danielle said softly. "I'm reading exactly what was written." Silence stretched between them. "I hope you reconsider," Victoria said carefully. Danielle nodded. "I am reconsidering." She walked past Victoria and back to her room. Inside, she opened her laptop. Emails filled her inbox, investors, media, board members waiting for Monday's announcement. She opened a new document and typed slowly. "After careful consideration, Neurospace will no longer pursue partnership with the Bington Group." She paused, then added another line. "Integrity is not negotiable." She saved the file, not sent, yet. She slept well that night. Morning arrived bright and clear. Sunlight filled the room like a decision already made. Danielle dressed simply, black slacks, cream blouse, hair pulled back, no jewelry, no distractions. She sat at the edge of the bed, laptop open again. The words stared back at her. She did not hesitate this time. A knock came at the door. "Come in." Shauna stepped inside. "You flew here," Danielle said, surprised. Shauna nodded. "You sounded like you needed backup." They sat together quietly. "You sure you want to walk away from $500 million?" Shauna asked. Danielle closed the laptop. "I already have." Shauna leaned back. "Wall Street will say you overreacted." Danielle nodded. "Let them." So what's the plan? We speak today, Danielle said, clear, calm, public. Shauna smiled. You sure you don't want to say a few things privately first? Danielle shook her head. Dignity first. 2 hours later, Danielle sat across from Charles and Victoria in the main salon. Lawyers waited nearby. I'm withdrawing from the merger, Danielle said. Charles blinked. You realize what you're walking away from? Yes, she replied, and I know what I'd become if I stayed. Victoria spoke. If this is about comments made, it's about culture, Danielle said. This was never a partnership, it was control. She stood. Neurospace will be fine. The press conference happened that afternoon, not at the estate, at a community center, plain walls, folding chairs. Danielle stepped up to the microphone. I'll be brief, she said. Clarity doesn't need drama. Cameras clicked. I have withdrawn Neurospace from the Bington merger. This decision is final. Gasps filled the room. It's not about money, she continued, it's about values. She spoke calmly, clearly, without anger. They invited me to their table, but they never expected me to lead, only to decorate. The room went silent. You don't need to accept disrespect to access opportunity, Danielle said. If you've ever been told to shrink, remember this, you can build your own room. Applause followed her off the stage. Outside, her phone buzzed nonstop. One message stood out. Thank you for showing us how to walk away with our heads high. Danielle smiled softly. The real impact was just beginning. The next 48 hours moved fast, faster than anyone at the Bington estate expected. The headlines broke before they could shape the story. Business channels ran the clip of Danielle at the podium on repeat. Social media exploded. Comment sections filled with people who had never met her, but somehow felt like they knew exactly what she had just done. A black woman CEO walks away from a $500 million deal over values. Neurospace founder refuses to be sidelined. She was invited to the table, but chose to build her own. Clips spread everywhere. Phones buzzed in offices. Morning shows debated her decision. Late-night hosts replayed her line about not decorating tables. People shared it with captions that said things like "This is leadership," and "This is what respect looks like." The internet did what it always does when power cracks. It looked backward. Old interviews surfaced of Charles Bington interrupting female executives, clips where he laughed while speaking over them. Someone dug up Gregory's old college posts, comments he had deleted but never truly erased. Victoria's closed door charity speech about preserving legacy and tradition suddenly did not sound so polished anymore. The Bington Group issued a statement calling it a misunderstanding. It did not land because Danielle had not shouted. She had not insulted them. She had simply told the truth calmly, and the truth did not need defending. One board member resigned quietly. 2 sponsors pulled out of an upcoming fundraiser. Their PR team worked non-stop, but the damage was already done. At Neurospace headquarters in Palo Alto, the mood was completely different. Employees gathered in small groups, watching clips on their phones, replaying Danielle's words like armor. Someone printed shirts that read, "We build, we don't beg." Danielle never approved them officially, but she did not stop anyone either. Investors began calling, not angry, curious, supportive. "I didn't expect this response." One admitted, "But what you did strengthened the brand." Other calls followed, smaller firms, values, aligned partners. Women, led funds, global research groups who had watched from a distance and were now stepping closer. Shauna walked into Danielle's office a week later with a thick folder. 5 new offers, she said. One is from the Dyson Institute. They want to co-develop your defense model into hospital safety systems. Danielle looked up. Under our structure. Shauna smiled, fully. Danielle nodded slowly. Then let's talk. That evening the office was quiet. City lights glowed through the windows. Danielle sat alone at her desk, phone resting beside her. It buzzed again. You didn't just protect your company. You gave people permission. She read it twice. Then once more, her mind drifted back to that long table, the seat halfway down, the smiles that came with conditions. They wanted her ideas without her voice, her innovation without her authority. They never understood. Her voice was the innovation. Danielle leaned back and looked out at the city. She did not feel victorious. She felt aligned. Power was never about money alone. It was about choice, and she had chosen herself. Her people, her values, somewhere else, another founder was probably sitting in a room, feeling that familiar tightness in their chest, wondering if they should stay quiet, wondering if the opportunity was worth the cost. Danielle hoped they remembered this moment. If you outgrow a room, you do not shrink, you leave. If they cannot see your value, they will feel your absence. And if you are ever told to be grateful just to be invited, remember this. You are not the guest, you are the table.